Adrenal fatigue symptoms, causes, solutions, explanations, all coming right up. Hey, I'm Dr. Ekberg with Wellness for Life, and if you like to truly master health by understanding how the body really works, make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss anything. Adrenal fatigue. You probably heard about it, you probably maybe thought you had it, but is it real, and what does it do, and what can you do about it? So we're going to talk about all those things. First of all, what are the adrenal glands? What do they do? Well, adrenal goes with adrenaline. It's a stress hormone. So the adrenal glands help you cope with stress. They're tiny thumb-sized, almond-sized glands that sit on top of the kidney. They are connections of the brain, essentially. They're neural tissue because they have to act really, really fast. When they respond to stress, there is no time for delay. They have to do what they do really quick. They help you cope with stress. Is that a good thing? Yes. Even though too much stress is not a great thing, inability to respond and cope with stress is devastating. So if you can't respond to stress, then any little amount of stress will wipe you out completely. And in the extreme, inability to respond to stress, then you're basically a sitting duck. You're standing in the street and a bus comes at you and you can't do anything about it. You can't generate the resources to get out of the way fast enough. So stress responses are essential. They are what helps you cope with life. So what else does it do? It helps you maintain blood sugar. And there's a hormone called cortisol that you also probably heard about. Cortisol raises blood sugar. It helps your body generate blood sugar whenever your blood sugar goes low. So the more unstable your blood sugar is, the more your adrenals have to work to compensate. So if you have what most people get on a high-carb diet, you get what's called a roller coaster blood sugar. So your body likes the blood sugar really nice and stable in that mid region, but then it goes up, and when it comes crashing down, you have hypoglycemia. And as soon as you have hypoglycemia, you lose focus, you get lightheaded, you get tired, cranky, irritable, and now your body has to make cortisol, so you're whipping your adrenals to work really hard. And the more unstable your blood sugar is, the harder and the more often they have to work. They also handle minerals. They make hormones that regulate minerals. So when they can't quite keep up, when they're tired, when they get fatigued, then they can't keep the minerals in the body. So you're losing minerals through the kidneys, primarily sodium, potassium, and calcium. Then they also indirectly help regulate sleep. Sleep has a lot to do, both as a cause and effect of adrenal fatigue, because your sleep hormone called melatonin is inversely related to cortisol. So whenever cortisol is high, melatonin is low. Whenever cortisol is low, melatonin is high. So melatonin helps you go to sleep, and therefore cortisol has to follow a certain pattern throughout the daily cycle. So cortisol is supposed to be the lowest in the evening when you're ready for sleep. If the cortisol is low, your melatonin is high, and you have the ability to fall asleep. Again, melatonin is your sleep hormone. Then throughout the night, because you don't eat anything, the cortisol rises to maintain your blood sugar in the absence of food. And as the blood sugar and as the cortisol rises, the melatonin falls, and the melatonin is the lowest in the morning and cortisol is the highest in the morning when you're ready to wake up. And that allows you to wake up rested and full of energy. And then the cortisol drops throughout the day until it's the lowest when you're ready to fall asleep again. So when all that works, then cortisol and melatonin work together to regulate your sleep. But when your adrenals don't work, and when you have blood sugar curves, and when you have stress, your cortisol levels are going to be all over the place, and consequently so is your sleep. So that's what the adrenal glands do, and that's a little bit about what they cause. So in the medical world, they don't really recognize adrenal fatigue because the adrenal gland has an enormous reserve capacity. So it's not going to result in a pathology until that adrenal gland is about 80% destroyed. But it's going to start creating problems and symptoms long before you have a full-blown disease. So the two extremes of adrenal disease, one is called Cushing's, and that's where you have like an adrenal tumor. You have something that's just overproducing cortisol all day long, and now the symptoms are a huge belly. It's a hanging belly. You get a big hump on your back. Cortisol burns off protein, so you get skinny little spindly legs, you get a flat butt, and you're also losing protein in the skin. You're losing collagen, so you get stretch marks and you bruise very easy. So those are extreme cases of overproduction in the case of Cushing's. But when you have a lot of stress leading to adrenal fatigue, you're also typically going to have a very high cortisol. So if any of those things that I mentioned for Cushing's apply to you, then you probably have a high cortisol level because of high stress. And if that continues year after year, decade after decade, in some people, when you burn out your adrenals completely so they can't keep up and do any sort of cortisol, then you have what's called adescence. And now your adrenals are completely wiped out, and that is not a fun place to be, because now you have a complete inability to deal with stress. You're basically a sitting duck. Any form of stress, any form of activity, if you try to do work more than 20 minutes, it just wipes you out and you get physically ill. Your body breaks down. So that is not a place you want to get to. So that's why it's so important to understand these mechanisms about adrenal fatigue and understand that it is very real, and you want to deal with these symptoms before they become a major problem. The causes are stress, excessive stress. The body is designed to deal with short-term stress, to fight, flight, to deal with life, but we're not designed for long-term stress. And when we talk about stress, we remember the chiropractic triad of health. That stress can be emotional, it can be chemical, and it can be structural. So you could have a bad posture, you could sit in a bad posture, you could have subluxations, you could have poor movements in your joints and your spine, and this is all a form of stress. You can have emotional stress, you can have life events, you could have a lot of work stress, but you can also have a mind that just won't shut up. When that thoughts are just racing, and it's like they just take you over and you don't know how to slow them down or stop them, that's emotional stress. Chemical stress is stimulants and toxins and pesticides and all of the chemical stuff that don't belong in the body, allergies, anything that the body reacts to at a structural, emotional, chemical level, whether it's excess or lack, can create stress in your body that results in adrenaline and cortisol and starts wearing your adrenals down. So work and thoughts will definitely do it. Sugar is another thing, because we talked about that here. So sugar and unstable blood sugar as a result of sugar and carbohydrate consumption, such as starches and breads and cookies and waffles and pasta, they will create this roller coaster. And as long as your adrenals are working, you may not notice this hypoglycemia too much, but you're still stressing your adrenals. So more reasons to lower your carbohydrates. Another thing people don't realize is exercise. People think, oh, exercise, that's always good. Not necessarily. If you have adrenal fatigue, then you don't want to exercise hard. You don't want to get your heart rate over 110, 120. You don't want to start panting because now you're putting more cortisol demands on the body. And you could actually be relatively healthy and exercise too much and develop adrenal fatigue because you're just working your body so hard. Anytime that your heart rate is up and above 130 and up, you are depending on cortisol for energy production. So most people who go to boot camp, they go to the gym, and they think they're doing themselves a good thing, may not necessarily be so. If you sustain a heart rate over 130 for 45 minutes, you just put a major stress load on your body. So while exercise is good, we want to understand how to exercise properly, and you can check out our video on exercise and anaerobic and aerobic exercise right here. And another major reason is if your thyroid isn't working, because if your thyroid slows down, now everything in your body slows down. Your digestion, your metabolism, but also your healing ability. The speed and the ability to heal slows down, so the recovery of the adrenals are lessened if your thyroid is low. So these two things together can start explaining why adrenal fatigue is so widespread. In our office, we find that a majority of people have some level of thyroid impairment, and of course we know that most people eat a lot of carbohydrates and they have a lot of work stress and they have racing minds. So some level of adrenal fatigue is probably affecting the vast majority of our population. And even though it's not going to result in Addison's in most cases, it is creating a lot of health problems. Some of the symptoms: sleep problems, fatigue, lightheadedness, fatigue in the morning, and salt cravings. So most of those are self-explanatory. The salt cravings is because you're losing minerals. Tired in the morning is because you're not getting your deep sleep and you're waking up with too much. If your cortisol is all over the place, then you're not waking up rested because you never got the full rest and you don't have the right blood sugar to get your day jump-started. And here's an interesting one: lightheadedness, especially if you bend down and stand up quickly. This is like one of the cardinal signs that people can tell if they have this. So if you lay down or you sit down and you stand up quickly, or you bend down and you stand up quickly, and all of a sudden it's like you have to hold on for a little bit, that is adrenal fatigue. Because when you lay down, then you don't need so much blood pressure to get the blood to the brain, because blood flows horizontally without so much effort. And then if you quickly stand up, then gravity is going to pull all the blood to your feet and it's going to rush out of your brain. And in order for you to not go unconscious, your adrenals have to make adrenaline, which is a vasoconstrictor, to raise blood pressure so that the brain can maintain its blood supply. And this has to happen in a fraction of a second. And if it doesn't happen that fast because the adrenals are tired, then it takes a few seconds before you can get enough adrenaline going to that your blood pressure is stabilized. So let's talk about solutions then. They're sort of self-explanatory now that we have talked about the causes and the mechanisms and all about how this works. So this is going to be real simple. Solutions, if you have stress, if you have racing thoughts, is meditation. You got to find a way to take a break from your day and empty your head. And this can be such a relief. If you can slow down your thoughts, if you can empty your mind for just a few minutes a day, this can be a lifesaver. So check out some more videos on guided meditations. We have one, we're going to make several more. Create stable blood sugar. So again, start eating whole food, eat something like a paleo diet or a keto diet so that you don't get all these blood sugar swings. Get regular sleep. In the beginning, this is going to be tough because you have trouble sleeping in the first place, but create a regular habit for yourself and stick to it. And if you do these other things, before long you will be able to sleep, and that's going to be an absolute necessity in order to create the stability that you're looking for. So pick a time, sleep from 10 to 6 or from 11 to 7 or however much sleep you need, but try to get it regular and stick to it. Supplements. In our office we have certain supplements. Standard Process makes something called Drenamin. There's another one called Drenatrophin that helps the body sort of support the adrenals and recover. They do love minerals. They do love real vitamin C. So get it from whole food. Don't rely on ascorbic acid. That's not the type that it's looking for. And long term though, what we find is most adrenal problems are secondary. So if you fix the thyroid, if you fix the other stuff and the blood sugar and the sleep, then rarely do the adrenals become the primary problem. They sort of resolve by the time that we've handled the other stuff. That's our clinical experience in our office. And another thing you want to do is stop whipping the adrenal glands every moment of every day with caffeine and stimulants. So some people think that caffeine is bad, but there's all these other stimulants and energy drinks that they say, oh, well, this gives you energy. No, it doesn't. It whips your adrenals. They whip them further into oblivion. So you got to cut back on all caffeine and stimulants to give the adrenals a little bit of rest. So there you have it in a nutshell, and realize that there is no substitute for restoring the body to health. There is no quick fix. You got to undo the things that caused it. You have to develop a healthy lifestyle, and you have to give the body what it needs. So please share this video with as many people as you can, because a majority of their health issues could be related to the things that we have talked about. And if you're new to this channel and you enjoy this sort of content, make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that we can keep this content coming your way and save more lives and get better health. Thanks for listening.